Assalamu alaikum, dear CSS friends. How are you? Hope you are enjoying. Previously, I gave the lecture on the introduction of current affairs. I hope you remember. And I also touched the foreign relations of Pakistan, and I also gave you an overview on Pak-India relations. So today I will talk on Pak-India relations in detail. First of all, I am going to give you the introduction and the background of the relationship, and then I will discuss the history in three phases. Now listen, history is always continuous, unstoppable. But just in order to make you people understand, I have made it easier for you by dividing the history in three phases. And then we will move on to the conclusion. So starting with the introduction, you all know Pakistan was carved out in 1947 contrary to the wishes of the Congress, Hindus. Hindus, they never wanted the vivisection of the Mother India. I remember Gandhi said that Pakistan over my dead body. So from the very beginning, the relations between India and Pakistan, they remained tense, hostile, uncomfortable. India was not able to reconcile with the creation of Pakistan. So Pakistan felt acute insecurity from the very beginning because of Indian intentions that India would like to reabsorb Pakistan back into the subcontinent, or India would try to dismember Pakistan, or it will make Pakistan collapse. So two things are important, okay, in the introduction. That the relationship remained hostile throughout the history, and number two, Pakistan had acute security concerns from the very beginning because of Indian intentions, because India wanted to be the regional hegemon. So India had very aggressive agenda, militaristic agenda, right, since 1940s. So let's move on to the various phases in which I will try to prove that the relationship, right, it remained disturbed throughout the history. Rather, it deteriorated with the passage of time, and at the moment, the relations, they have gone to as low as possible. Phase 1, 1947 to 1998, I have written period of conflicts. Then phase 2, 99 to 2016, peace process and its collapse. And phase 3, 2016 to date, critical phase and Kashmir. So starting with phase number 1, I have written that this was period of conflict and confrontation between India and Pakistan. By conflicts, I mean that the period of major wars and minor wars. And let's start with the very first conflict, that was 1947 war on Kashmir. And as a result of this war, Kashmir was divided. A portion of Kashmir, it was taken over by Pakistan, which is known as Azad Kashmir. Gilgit-Baltistan people, they revolted against Kashmiri Maharaja and they joined Pakistan by their discretion. And the larger part of Kashmir, known as Jammu and Kashmir, Ladakh, it was taken over by India. And to date, this is the status quo exists. The status of Kashmir has not changed. And Kashmir has been the major bone of contention between India and Pakistan. Now let's move on to the next conflict. It came in the form of water. In 1949, India tried to stop the water of Ravi River, thereby trying to damage our crops in Punjab. Temporarily, the solution was sorted out, but for the long-term solution, the case was referred for mediation to the World Bank. And World Bank gave the solution after long negotiations in 1960. This accord was known as Indus Water Treaty. According to Indus Water Treaty, the rivers or the waters were divided between India and Pakistan. The western three rivers, Sindh, Chenab, Sindh, Jhelum and Chenab, they were given to Pakistan. Sindh, Jhelum and Chenab, they were given to Pakistan with the condition that India will not utilize the water of these rivers for itself. Similarly, the eastern three rivers, lower three rivers, which are Ravi, Satluj and Beas, they were given to India with the same condition that Pakistan will avoid the utilization of water of these rivers. But unfortunately, water problem did not solve, and India tried to interpret the treaty according to its own national interest, and thereby water issue could not be settled. For example, India first of all tried to build a dam, Baghlihar Dam, on river Chenab, and you know that this river belongs to Pakistan. So that was a contradiction. That was a violation of Indus Water Treaty. Similarly, India tried to build Krishna Ganga Dam on river Jhelum Neelam, and Pakistan again objected that India is diverting the water of Pakistan river. Similarly, India is building more dams on river Indus and these Pakistani rivers. And secondly, the availability of water is also reducing day by day because of the climatic changes, because of the global warming, and thereby the intensification of the water dispute is going to be a problematic in the future between India and Pakistan. Next conflict, 1965, another war on the issue of Kashmir. Then again next major war in 1971. East Pakistan was converted into Bangladesh with the conspiracy of India and involvement of India. So by 1971, Pakistan was cut into half and we lost eastern component. That shows that Pakistan was genuinely concerned about its security and survival, and by 71, after 24 years of its existence, it was cut into half. Then in 1974, India exploded its first nuclear device, which again created problems for Pakistan, and Pakistan's security concerns aggravated, and Pakistan also decided to go nuclear in order to secure itself vis-a-vis Indian intentions. So in 1976 we also started our nuclear program. We move on to 1980s, another conflict, 1984, Siachen. So move on to 1980s. In 1984, the issue of Siachen erupted. Siachen is a glacier at the height of 20,000 plus feet. Traditionally, it was under the control of Pakistan Army, and in the month of December 1984, because of intense winter, Pakistan Army moved down, and the Indian forces, they occupied the heights. Anyway, there was a small war, but Pakistan could not take the upper heights back. And 1989 now, there was an insurgency in Kashmir. Insurgency means revolt in Kashmir. The local Muslims, which were residing in Indian Jammu and Kashmir, they became upset because of the brutal Indian rules. They were always kept suppressed and oppressed, and they were deprived of all the rights. And therefore they revolted and they wanted to have independence. So at that critical moment, when they revolted against Indian rule, Pakistan found it a right opportunity to provide the moral help to the Muslim Kashmiris in Jammu and Kashmir. And we started sending the Mujahideen for their support, which were taken as the terrorists by India. And India blamed Pakistan that you are promoting terrorism, they are terrorists, they are intruders, and they are intervening into our state of affairs. So relations in 90s, they deteriorated, they became tense because of these cross-border movements of the Mujahideen, which were considered by India as terrorists. Now, the last important event taking place in this first phase was that India conducts its nuclear experiment for the second time. It conducted the earlier experiment in 1974, and now it reconfirmed its status as a nuclear state in 1998. Pakistan started its nuclear program in 1976, and by this time Pakistan was also nuclear capable. So exactly 17 days after the Indian atomic explosions, Pakistan also detonated its nuclear weapons, and thereby giving the message to India and the international community that today we feel secure and today we are equal to India. We have achieved nuclear parity, PARITY. पैरिटी का मतलब होता है बराबर. जब दो स्टेट्स न्यूक्लियर इक्वल होती हैं, क्योंकि वहाँ पे रवायती या ट्रेडिशनल जो मिलिट्री है वो उसकी सुपीरियॉरिटी ख़त्म हो जाती है. तो इंडियाज़ सुपीरियॉरिटी इन कन्वेंशनल वॉर, it was over once Pakistan also became nuclear. So two giants, two neighbors, they became equal. And two nuclear states, they never go to war, because they know the consequences, that in case of a war, what is going to happen, that both the states, both the adversary, they will be destroyed. And obviously a nuclear war will lead to mutual assured destruction. So nobody can afford nuclear war. And because of this reason, that it provides security and it provides a kind of peace between these nations who have the nuclear weapons. So this is the end of the phase one. Now you have seen the conflicts. Okay, 1947, 1960 water, 1965, 1971, 1984, and ultimately, right, both the states, they become nuclear because of their own national interest and their own security agendas. And mind you, at this stage, 1998, we are nuclear, we can't afford war. And when you can't afford a war, then what are the options for you to resolve the conflicts? You have so many issues to be resolved: Kashmir, Sar Creek, water, Siachen. Then what to do? So when you cannot have a war, the only option left with the nations is to sit and talk and start negotiation, right, on the table, like decent and civilized nations they do. So I now move on to the second phase, 1999 to 2016. I've already told you that now, because of the nuclear factor, right, we have to avoid the war, and we have to build peace across the borders. We have to normalize the relations with each other, because we can no more afford the hostility, the rivalry with each other, and we have to become normal neighbors. So this phase, known as peace process, building peace and moving away from the conflicts and confrontation to the cooperation, from confrontation to cooperation. And the peace process, comprising of confidence building measures, CBMs, right? There were 4 CBMs, like all the core issues will be resolved through dialogue. Number 2, the borders will be relaxed so that the people, they can, right, cross the border and they can have interaction on the other side. And number 3, trade, enhancement of the trade. And number 4, culture exchanges. So these were the 4 areas, right, which were to be covered under the peace process. and the peace process began in February 99 with a bus service between Amritsar and Lahore, also known as bus diplomacy. So in the very first bus, so we are trying to connect the people on both sides. So the very first bus which came from Amritsar to Pakistan, Indian Prime Minister Atal Bihari Vajpayee himself travelled as a passenger and came to Pakistan with a message of peace. So it was a very, very defining moment, happy moment in the history, that Indian Prime Minister coming up with a good gesture. And he was received at Wagah by Nawaz Sharif, the Pakistani Prime Minister. And they both signed Lahore Declaration that this is the start of the dialogue, and in future all the issues they will be brought to the negotiation table. So it was a wonderful start of the peace process. But then look here what I have written. It's collapsed. So how it collapsed? Because I am going to now tell you that this is how peace process moved. Okay, starting peace process, collapse of peace process. Starting peace process, suspension of peace process. Start of peace process held. तो ये क्या ऐसा वजह है कि पीस प्रोसेस चलता है, डायलॉग चलता है और फिर रुक जाता है, and so on? The answer is that there were certain factors which badly affected the peace process between both the countries. So now I come here, so focus on this area, what I have written. The very first factor which disturbed the newly started peace process and the bus service, it was the Kargil episode. Episode कहते हैं वाक़या. 99, 3 days after the start of the bus service. Bus service started February 99. Kargil episode took place in May 99. Kargil is basically a village in Indian Jammu and Kashmir. And what happened, that few mujahideen, they crossed the border and they captured Kargil. And Indians, once again, they claim that they are the terrorists and they have crossed the border on Indian side, and India retaliated. There was again a small war, and ultimately the Kargil, it was got relieved, and the Mujahideen, they surrendered. But this operation or episode, Vakya, this event, this destroyed the newly started peace process, okay, and it came to suspension because India claimed that this is an act of terrorism by Pakistan. And if Pakistan is serious with the peace process, Pakistan should stop promoting terrorism. India already labeled Pakistan a terrorist state in 90s when Pakistan was providing moral support to the Indian Kashmiris, Muslim Kashmiris. And so India again took this episode from the same prism and blamed Pakistan that you are promoting terrorism. And therefore, as long as you don't stop terrorism, dialogue cannot be continued.